Philippine population is growing too fast. Too fast for our business sectors and our government to keep up. Here's a time to wake up for all of us. If you think that this overpopulation debate does not affect you, think again. Those are the facts regarding the population, how it affects people, the education system, unemployment, and whatnot. That's why some think that we need to curtail the overpopulation that we are having right now. That's why they are trying to push forward the arts bill. They think that this arts bill would try to control the population and somewhat eliminate the poverty. But let's see if this bill is actually the best one. Let's have a comparative analysis through a debate. Let's watch this.
I am pro Orange Bill, not because I think it's a perfect policy to address the present issues. As a matter of fact, I would have to concede that some aspects of the bill is imperfect. But compared to not doing anything at all or synonymous to that kind of policy, then I think still that the greatest benefit is when we implement that particular bill. How so? First, on the level of utility and necessity, we have to assess the present needs of our country, and we should be able to address whether the bill is the one which really will be able to suffice or redress all of these problems, specifically on the level of problems on population growth, second on the rate of transmission of AIDS, and all of these synonymous things. But more than that, also the primacy or the importance of life when you talk about women's health. We have to give priority on women's health. And of course, we also have to consider the fact that the culture that we have now is rapidly changing. And the kind of subscription that we used to have, our traditions, our reservations, these things have been deconstructed. That's the reason why we have to be more open to the idea that um, people are now more susceptible to engaging on these kinds of practices. We have to be realistic that sex in itself is not something which used to be exclusive. It has grown, reality check, it has grown into something which necessitates a more complex and a more effective approach on how we're going to deal with it. Secondly, I think in terms of alleviating poverty, the population growth scheme, in terms of in terms of the influence of the Orange Vote bill, could be very effective. Why? Because the target market of the bill for providing the contraceptives are primarily the poor, those who cannot afford or cannot live a portion of their budget for the purpose of how do I say this? For the purpose of planning for their for reproductive purposes, for trying to prevent prevent births or pregnancies. And second, I think another problem that the others see is that it's something um, which is against life, which is not really pro-life. But I beg to differ because when you talk about the family, they are primarily liable and they have the primary authority over the decision-making process within their family for as long as there's no life that is being violated or being infringed upon, no right. And come to think of it, it's not anymore about whether a 3-month-old fetus is actually alive. But you should be able to understand that, like any other, in order for us to fully enjoy the benefits of democracy, we should understand that where we best have the greatest utility, then we should be in favor of those kinds of policies. It's not synonymous to being pro-abortion, but it's more of pro-right, pro-right of the family to have the prerogative or option to decide on its own. Because in the end, it's the family that will suffer, and if the family suffers as a unit, the rest of the society will also suffer. So it's just going to be a never-ending cycle of failure in society if we don't accord them that particular right. Thirdly, on the level of morality, I think that there is a value in morality, but there are instances where it must take the backseat in order for us to enjoy further the resources that we have. Because, come to think of it, the biggest problem in our society is not really the lack of resources, but the way people allocate and um, utilize these resources. It's not that we don't have sufficient budget, it's just that they are not being allocated strategically. And I think that the RH bill is a strategic and a lucrative investment for the state, assuming that it will be implemented in accordance to what is really supposed to happen in paper, or um, what is actually like any other policy, okay? Like any other policy that it should be implemented according to what's really written in it. What else can I say about the RH bill? Yun lang.
Alright, thank you. Bye-bye.
Pati yun nga.
I think that the solution for corruption and other poverty issues in the Philippines is not the RH bill, because even if we reduce the number of Filipinos that we have, or even if we reduce the entire population, still the very root cause of the poverty of the Philippines, which is corruption, will still be present. So I don't think that we only target the population, but rather let's overhaul the entire system, like destroy the institutionalized corruption in our country by reforming other safety nets or legal safety nets inside the government per se, and not only destroy or lessen the population, because we think that the country should capitalize on its number one export resources, which are the Filipinos, because the most in-demand workers are not Japanese nor Indians, but rather Filipinos, because the whole world is very much is the whole world rather is very much dependent, or moreover Filipinos are trusted by the whole world in terms of skills and other capabilities of a worker. So I don't think that we should kill or we should reduce the resources of the Philippines, but we should capitalize on it. And again, the root cause of the problems of this country is not are not the Filipinos nor the population, but rather the institutionalized and the already systematic corruption in the government. We can see other growing economies that we see J- uh, China right now and the United States. These countries are overpopulated, meaning the minimum they have already exceeded the maximum level or the maximum number of people in their country. We see China very much overpopulated. We already see them implementing the one child policy because they know for a fact that their population is very much booming and they have to control it. But as you can see, China right now is the second largest economy in the world next to the United States of America. It's not because China limited or moreover reduced its population. No, because China is still overpopulated and still the largest country in terms of population in the world, but rather they capitalize on their people. They invested more on manufacturing. That's why China is the number one manufacturer in the world. That's why we had the saying that God made the world and the rest by China. So, in summation, the case in point, China or the Chinese government knew for a fact that their number one resource to be rich again is not are not the natural resources that they have, but rather the people who would then process or would make these inputs to become outputs. That's why the whole world is investing on on China because they have skillful workers. I think the same thing should be done in the Philippines. Like we should train our workers, we should invest on their skills and whatnot to make our workers or the labor force very much marketable, the same way that China and the United States did.
Okay.
Those are the arguments regarding the population, on how poverty, unemployment, and education system is hinged to it. But both gave a policy and a proposal on how to counter the poverty. And I think, as a Filipino, as an individual, you too should make a stance.